Okay, welcome to the folks that are just joining right now. We've got a few hundred people, 300 and some odd people signed up, so we're going to give a few minutes for everybody to get in. It's interesting watching the Zoom. It's like a ticker tape and the old ticker tapes just keeps going up and up and up. It's like an ego thing, you know, as you watch the, just continuing, we're over, just over 200 now. So we'll give another a few minutes to get started.
Your little dopamine hit. All these people are here to see you.
No, they're all here to see you guys. I'm just bringing it together.
He's going to start bragging about his ratings. Now they're better than The Bachelor.
All right, we'll wait another half a minute. We still got people joining. Okay, I think we'll get started now. We've got quite a few people joining us. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, Where Do Catalogs Go From Here? My name is Mark Friedman, and I'm the president of Details Interactive, a consultancy focused on helping direct-to-consumer brands grow and enhance their business. I'm also the host of a podcast, The Marketing Playbook. Thanks for joining us. We all hope that you and your families are managing through the current situation as well as can be expected right now. We've put together a panel of experts that will be offering their outlook on the catalog industry. As many of you know, the catalog space has been extremely challenged even before COVID-19 started to impact us even greater. Just a little housekeeping, there is a quick Q&A capability here. We did have some people ask some questions ahead of time. We'll try and get to them as we can and weave them through the answers and the questions that we'll pose to the panel today. And now I will let each of the individuals introduce themselves quickly, and then we'll get right into questions. Bill Bass, how about you you start for us?
I'm Bill Bass. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Full Beauty Brands. We're a collection of 8 catalogs focused primarily on women and big and tall men.
Okay, Matt.
Thanks, Mark. Matt Redlon, I'm the president and CEO and one of the co-founders with some other super talented people at Clario. Clario is really laser focused as a software and service provider on 2 pillars. One is customer centricity, and the second pillar is a scientific approach to marketing optimization. So we try to work with every one of our clients to do that. The product is sort of like a longitudinal CDP with attribution, and that's what we build all of our services on. Thanks for having me today.
Great. Steve?
Hi, I'm Steve August, VP Marketing, Rhodes Scholar. Rhodes Scholar is an educational travel organization. We're a nonprofit serving the 50-plus market. We have programs that run all around the world. At any given day, we typically would normally have, a few thousand programs running. Right now, we don't have anything running, but yeah, we really serve that senior market.
Great, welcome. And Bill LaPierre.
Hi, Bill LaPierre with Datamann. We're a traditional catalog service bureau. We're located in Vermont. We work with catalogers, retailers, and e-commerce companies. We build marketing databases, do merge, purge, and match back. Mark sent out the list of people that had pre-registered for the seminar, and of the 300 or so people, I felt like I recognized 90% of them. So it's great to have all of those people on board. And if anybody hasn't yet signed up for my blog, you can find the link at datamann.com.
Hey, that's going to cost you extra, Mr.
That's my plug for the day.
Okay. Well, we've had quite a few people join since we got started. So for those that were just joining, there is a Q&A capability on Zoom. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them over to us, and we'll do our best to get to them here. But let's jump right in. Let's start first with the mailers and Bill Bass. Can you update us on the state of Full Beauty Brands at the moment? How are you guys, what was your experience when we first started to shut down? How have you seen it perhaps change over the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah, so I think when we first started to shut down, our initial reaction was, thank God we don't have stores. Because the poor people with stores had to deal with much worse issues than we had. And that was one of those, we talked about catalogs declining over time, but boy, what a great time to be a cataloger compared to a store-based retailer. So when we sell primarily home goods business. One of our catalogs is a home good business. One of our catalogs is a swimsuit business. And when it started off, we really saw different behavior by segment. So the swimsuit business, this was rolling into their season because they got to buy their swimsuits to go off on the Rhodes Scholar trips and hang out on the beaches. This was really inconveniently time for the swimsuit business. So their business really dropped off right from the get-go. Conversely, the home business has been strong. It's been up year over year. So as more people are spending more time in their home, they're spending more time there. Within the apparel side of the business, intimate apparel, loungewear, sleepwear, all were better off this year than they were last year. But as a general rule, apparel is down 30-ish% because of COVID. And one of the interesting things that we've seen in the past week, and literally this was started about a week and a half ago, sales really took off again. And we're not exactly sure why, but we think it was the stimulus checks getting in people's homes. So in the past week, 10 days, we've really seen business kind of come back surprising to us. And that accounts for the Easter shift and all the rest of that. We've been surprised at how strong business has been just in the very most recent week, though.
Great, thank you. Steve?
Well, I feel this is a story of two catalogers on the opposite ends of the spectrum. I thought Bill was maybe going to say, instead of he was thankful he wasn't a retailer, thankful that he wasn't a travel organization. So yeah, we going into January, just to give you a sense, we were up 20% plus year over year. We were very excited about the opportunity that the year held. And if you had asked me, where do catalogs go from here, I would have told you, nowhere but up. We were accelerating our circulation and driving it forward, but in short order, we were down 50% year over year. And based upon performance that we were seeing, we made decisions on the spot in terms of things we had on the press to hold them, to stop, literally stop the presses and not mail. So we from March 6th until this week, we haven't had anything in the mail at all, primarily so that we could, allow the virus to run its course. But recently we did have a piece that for the national parks, and we're releasing that this week to about 100,000 folks, and we're hoping to get a read off of that. But we're down 90% year over year, which is just amazing. I would have never thought we'd be down as much as we are. So we're hoping to get a read from this most recent catalog we're going to get in the mail. We revised our schedule for the rest of the year to be really pulled back. And we're going to get reads from that in terms of how like-for-like segments perform. That'll give us a sense in terms of how our planning for 2021 falls out. We've already sort of planned, and oddly enough, Matt, who's on this call, we use Clario to help do our planning for circulation, and they've been able to help us sort of have a reduced contact frequency with with our participants, which will hopefully drive as many enrollments, but with less catalogs. But yeah, it's really been a difficult course. We're doing a number of different things, which we might get to later,
Yep.
in order to adjust for that.
Great. We would definitely get to that. And Matt and Bill, since you're both on the client servicing side, perhaps we can get a perspective from you. Matt, you want to start us off?
Sure. Just sort of verticals, Mark, what we're seeing, there's some things that are sort of intuitive when people are locked in their homes. The clients we have with physical stores, obviously, as Bill mentioned earlier, it's brutal for them. I was talking to a client at one point when she told me that they were going to furlough all of their store employees. And that seems very common right now. Like yeah, sure, of course they did that. But at the time, it literally took my breath away, shutting their entire national presence down. So companies that have the physical stores, as Bill Bass also said, companies that have been native catalog or e-commerce, it's very much by their what they sell, right? The pieces. So when you look at, we have clients that are in automotive restoration business, one that I would not have necessarily thought would do well, but a lot of people are at home and have, maybe they're doing their hobbies, or someone else mentioned to me that, well, maybe they're actually fixing their car, themselves because they're out of work at this point, and are saving the money. So auto restoration. So, those are very interesting. Steve's already spoken to the travel vertical, so we don't have to talk about that at this point. But certainly in the home improvement, home goods, we also are seeing that people seem to be sort of fortifying their position around their place they're locked up right now. Decorating, home improvement, all of those kind of things. Even furnishings online are doing quite well. Discretionary purchases overall, though, is probably things that are really on the sort of lower on or higher on Maslow's hierarchy, I would say. Those things are taking the biggest hit. The things that I can get by without.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And Bill?
I talked with a lot of our clients over the past couple of weeks, particularly since you asked me to be on this call. And we run the full gamut. We've got clients with stores that are closed and who have websites that were never designed for doing a lot of e-commerce. So they're basically have zero revenue at the moment. But we've got some hard goods clients that are selling products that, as Matt and Bill had just previously said, are in demand at the moment, that have seen a quadrupling of their sales over where they were a year ago. They can't keep products in stock. They're having huge problems with back orders. They're having problems with getting products out the door. They've had to go to second shifts in their warehouse. So there's this huge dichotomy at the moment between sort of the haves and the have-nots within the catalog world. Anything related to gardening seems to be doing exceptionally well right now, but gardening always does well in a recession. Specialty food did very well towards the end of March, early April, leading up to Easter. And I think that might have been the result of people wanting to have something special for Easter or Passover, but not wanting to do takeout. So the specialty food guys did okay. Our lower end apparel clients and casual wear clients are doing well. Active wear is doing well. People may not be able to go to the gym, but they're working out at home. They want some new apparel. The bottom has fallen out, though, of what I would call dressy apparel. Nobody's buying evening wear at the moment because they can't go anywhere. The one thing that I'd like to throw out along those lines is that as impressive as all of that sounds for some of these mailers, that they're doing so well, is this just a bump that is related to the virus? And how would you then take that forward into fall holiday? Because you have to remember and put this in perspective, there are 22 million people that are unemployed now that had a job 6 weeks ago. the market is still down considerably. And you've got all these other major retailers that are filing for bankruptcy. So that's sort of the thing that our clients are grappling with, which is, how do I take this forward to fall holiday?
So Bill, hold on to that thought. We'll come back to that, and I'll ask everybody about how they are thinking about or guiding clients about fall holiday. Let's go to kind of the cost structure. It would seem that the catalogers are, and I refer to them as catalogers, knowing that full well most of the businesses today are using catalogs to drive into either physical stores or to online, but we'll use the description of catalogers. What are the kind of costs that will they cut costs? If so, where are they going to cut costs? Bill Bass, you want to start us off on how you're thinking about preserving cash?
Yeah, so the first thing, when your sales drop that and you got a pipeline of goods coming in, the first thing you start doing is, okay, what do we need to do about the receipts of our goods? Are there things that we can get out of? Can we stop some of the production flowing in? Because all the work the inventory planning people made, it didn't account for 30% drops in sales or things like that. So as you look through the P&L, the first thing you got is cost of goods. It's roughly half the revenue of the company goes to cost of goods. So the first thing you do is start looking at cost of goods. Can you change payment terms, things like that? We're no different than any other apparel company in terms of that. Then the second big impact part of the P&L is marketing expense. And so we think about marketing expense in kind of two ways. So one, there's the digital marketing that you can react to very quickly. And we come up with return on advertising spend targets that are based upon lifetime value of the customer that we're acquiring through those channels, and different channels, different online marketing channels have different proportions of customers coming in with different lifetime values, and we calculate all that together kind of back into a ROAS. And we use a ROAS because that agencies have an easy time getting their head around ROAS targets. So what ends up happening is, if your sales comes down, your marketing kind of automatically adjusts for that, because you're still trying to keep the same return on advertising spend targets. And so for us, the digital marketing, we really haven't had to touch very much, because it was already set up to hit the targets that we want. On the catalog side, the print side, you got a problem because you got a lag time, and you're trying to forecast what the performance is going to be 4, 5, 6 weeks out in advance. And so our team is sitting here every week coming up with our latest forecast of where we think things are going to be, and are adjusting the catalog mailings. We're trying not to touch much of our prospecting. Prospecting still ends up being our #1 priority, but we're definitely playing around with things on the margin.
Okay, and Steve, you're a different kind of a business, but how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, different, and from an acquisition point, very different as well, because we're more focused on, for us, our prospecting and our acquisition is more focused on generating interest and leads, more top of funnel than actual immediate conversion. We have kept some of that from a digital standpoint, but things that are higher up in the funnel, maybe like a display ad versus a search ad, we've tended to cut. Just because it's going to take a lot longer of a time frame for someone to convert from that top of funnel. Even though in the past it had worked, just knowing the current circumstances, and for us, we might bring someone in, they might be interested in traveling, and we market to them. It might be 6 months or so before they actually do convert. So we have a really long, time span we're looking at. So those things that are much more top of funnel, we have pulled back on. As I said, from a catalog standpoint, we really did heavily pull back and reassess. I mean, we're in a point where, not only where our destinations that we want to send people to are infected, the participants who we have are potentially infected, and so from a marketing standpoint, we really kind of changed up what we were looking at. and look to develop more engagement marketing rather than sort of immediate conversion marketing to keep that relationship alive. But from a cost expense standpoint, the first thing we did is we did make some adjustments. So for instance, the senior team taken pay reductions. Our CEO is going without a salary, which is just, fantastic that he was willing to do that. And then, there's been different adjustments at different pay grades, so that it was, less regressive than it otherwise would have been. So we did, we really went through our whole Q3, Q4 budget, and we dropped millions upon millions just in order to preserve cash. But obviously going forward, we can't do that. We've got to be in a position where we're starting to lay down marketing so that we're building up those enrollments for time to come.
All right, and Matt, your business, the core of your business, and you can maybe depict it differently, is helping businesses, catalogers optimize mailing patterns and helping them with attribution. So, what have you seen? What's the message that they have come to you asking? Where should we cut? I mean, is that the question?
Yeah. The first question, it's sort of a bloodbath at first, right? Where you just cut everything because it's a survival mechanism at first. I agree 100% with what Steve said. The companies that will, I guess I was going to make a cliche statement, which is the companies that turn to offensive earlier, are going to perform better coming out of this. The great unknown here, though, as I think Bill L., you were talking about on our last week, the great unknown is when are we going to be coming out of this, right? So at what point do you start to push on the gas related to those upper funnel activities that Steve was talking about? The brand awareness, the longer cycles of bringing a customer into your brand. From a house file perspective, I think that there is still amongst, you kind of are hitting on a bigger question. When we used to do this, it was all very much catalog channel centric, meaning you're looking at circulation within the catalog channel and looking at the density of contact strategies related to customers and thinning that out, typically in your best responding customers where you're cutting. What's changed over time, I think, is the focus more on the customer holistically across channels, looking at their engagement in the digital vehicles, looking at their email engagement activity, suppressing circulation where unnecessary, and also coordinating purchase channels. So people who have offline, bricks presence, where do those people need brand related touches of print? I think it has, if anything, Mark, it has for us accelerated and perhaps weakened some of the sort of institutional or cultural inertia or resistance to recognizing that the world of catalogs has changed somewhat. There's slow to move companies when they build up that inertia. So pushing back on that and cutting it becomes not an evil word in some cultures, and that I think is going to remain after coronavirus. The companies that are recognizing that and are making those changes, that will persist.
And Bill L., with the folks that you have chatted with, how have they thought about reducing the cost, changing the cost structure, changing the way the levers of advertising are playing in their business?
Well, two things. The number one thing I hear them all saying is, even though they're doing well, they still need to conserve cash. And it's a universal phrase that everyone's using right now, which is not one that rolls off the tip of the tongue of most marketers. So I know it's coming from orders from finance to conserve cash. So even the clients that are doing well, one of the things that they're seeing right now is that they're doing phenomenally well without a lot of catalogs in the mail. And some of these hard goods clients that are doing well were also the same ones who a year ago I was trying to convince to do holdout tests. And one of the common things that I hear back from people is, well, what do I do to replace the sales when I do a holdout test? Because I'm not going to be generating any sales from those names. And the thing that I always point out to people is you will be generating a lot of sales, even though you do the holdout test, from those people. And it becomes a real eye opener to people when they actually start to see those results. I've cut back on catalogs, but I'm still getting a lot of sales in. The catalogs to cut back on, I know Matt works primarily with some very large mailers. We work with a lot of smaller mailers. And one of the things that we're doing is showing the clients that the web-only buyers, the people that they might have acquired from pay-per-click or from search, aren't as productive as those people who they acquired, let's say, from a traditional catalog environment that call in over the call center or even still mail in a check. So as we're looking at what search to eliminate in the future, you start cutting back on those web-only buyers. You start cutting back on the people who respond to emails because you know you're going to be contacting them via email anyway. And then the place where I would recommend to people is just don't do anything stupid. Start cutting out the paper tests and the gatefolds and the luxury things you had in the past, like doing perfect binding on a 32-page catalog. Those are the kinds of things that just can't be withstood this year going into 2020 fall holiday. To conserve cash, get rid of those things that weren't going to contribute to your response rate anyway. And to a point that Bill Bass made about prospecting, I do think it's important to keep prospecting. I'm not recommending to our clients that they cut out prospecting, but for them to recognize the fact that the response rates are going to be down by X%, and X% is going to be different for everybody in the fall holiday. So if a segment was marginal before, it hasn't gotten any better. And so if it was marginal before, let's take it out because it's certainly going to be at least 20, maybe 40% worse when we mail it in the future.
And just to pick on that about acquisition for a second, if you are driving your business, if you're a mailer that's driving your business and saying, look, I'm going to look to acquire customers and have it be break even within 12 months as an example, and maybe I'll direct this to Bill Bass. If you're going to sustain customer acquisition and then layer in what Bill just said, does that mean that you are likely to be looking at an elongated return on your investment? So it's not 12 months anymore, it's maybe 18 or even beyond that?
Yeah, it's let me answer that in two ways. So we have 8 catalogs. We have 8 businesses, and there's kind of each one marches to its own drummer. And so we have on each of those businesses yeah. and you want to a degree. So it's collective bohemianism, I guess. And so so each one will have a different target, and we'll adjust those targets based upon how that individual business is performing. Right? So we're not stretching out the time frame for our knows when that's going to come back. That's going to be a harder one. And then, just depending upon how the individual businesses are doing. The thing that we always find, and when I say always, Full Beauty came out of bankruptcy about a year ago. And then before this, I was at a Blue Stem. It was Orchard Brands that got bought by Blue Stem. And that was coming out of bankruptcy when I joined it. And when I come in and find these catalog companies that have gotten into trouble, they almost always have been bought by some private equity firm that comes in and says, hey, we need to cut back on our marketing expense, and your prospecting is always your most expensive marketing. And so they go, hey, we're just going to get rid of the expensive marketing. And they shoot themselves in the foot. And it always amazes me. You got smart people in these private equity firms, and they keep doing this serial dumb thing. It's like watching the Saw horror movie series. It's like, no, don't go in the room when the music's playing like that. And so for us, really, we retain about 50% of our customers each year. And that means half of our customers are going away, and we got to fill in the top of the bucket. And if you don't pay attention to that really focus on that, you're going to end up having a problem.
Yeah, and so let me keep on the same topic of acquisition, and maybe open this up to Steve August and then the others. The catalog industry has been, acquiring customers for a long time, now through digital channels. And oftentimes you see that those customers don't perform. We heard this earlier from Bill L. They don't perform in the same way that, customers that were sourced through traditional catalog means in the same way. With the advent all these years of the co-ops and everybody kind of fishing in the same pool, and presumably with business down, is that going to make it much more challenging for you to acquire new customers, or for any of these businesses to acquire new customers?
Is that a question to me, Mark?
Yeah, Steve, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. For me, no. We actually have a very diversified acquisition strategy, and the co-ops make up a very small slice of that. We really market ourselves in a couple different ways. One of the best ways is we have such strong brand loyalty that the word of mouth for us is just fabulous, and we have ways to drive that with refer a friends and things like that, introduce a friends, and there's contests related to that, and those tend to be frankly some of our best folks to prospect to, with tremendous response. But over the years, we've grown our internet marketing as well, completely apart from anything with the co-op. So no, it doesn't present a problem for us at all.
Okay. Bill L., thoughts on this whole concept of name acquisition and where those names are going to come from?
Well, I think most catalogers have really cut back on their reliance on the co-ops. They had already cut back on their reliance on traditional lists because, well, quite frankly, most of them were no longer available or no longer working. And as the co-op performance has declined, most catalogers have switched to relying an awful lot on search, on pay-per-click, on social to a degree. So, I also think that what has happened in the last couple of weeks that I referred to earlier, where catalogers are suddenly seeing volume coming in, at least for some of them, not everybody, without a lot out in the mail, they're going to start looking at what can I do to establish that identity with my customers out there, that they don't necessarily need to have a catalog. Or can I get by with having a smaller catalog? We're talking with some clients right now who are looking at testing smaller books, again, as a way to conserve cash for fall holiday. So reduce the page count and just focus on trying to get people to say, yeah, okay, I want to go check out this company, but I'm going to go to their website. I don't necessarily need their catalog. The trick is to then start carrying that into prospecting as well, which most people haven't tried to do yet. Can I prospect with a smaller book, a much smaller book?
Yeah, I've been there many times in my career trying to prospect with smaller books, and I don't think we were ever really able to, those incremental pages that you take out or add back in never seemed to be worthwhile to cut back. Giving them the bigger book with more assortment, if it made sense, always seemed to win out. There was a question that came in kind of directed for Matt and Bill. Are you seeing any traditional brick and mortar retailers, large or small, with primary revenue driven by stores who have pivoted quickly to focus on e-com and execute it well enough to offset sales, and then using that to now make plans for the future of a catalog? Matt, so have you seen anything there?
Success, but the word offset is the trick there. Most companies that operate, if you're operating as say a mall-based retailer where you have hundreds or thousands of stores, I don't see it likely that, in short order you could move the volume to online. Some interesting tactics we've been working on with clients related to this is just quickly building predictive models on the history to predict those customers most likely store-only buyers, for example, who are most likely to convert to online buyers, focusing tactics on those individuals, both targeting in the digital platforms and also focusing limited direct mail. And seeing that work, that those individuals respond at a greater rate. Like I said, the key would be offset. They're starting to, as Bill was saying, Bill L. We have two Bills here. I have to qualify it with which Bill. As Bill L. said, I think eyes are definitely being opened to the possibility of, just like I made the comment earlier that catalogers can deal with inertia and things like this, bricks retailers do as well. They have inertia related to the store being the bread and butter of the brand, and starting to look at e-commerce as the second fiddle. This will open eyes related for those organizations to e-commerce as being something more than a second fiddle as a result of this.
And Bill L., any thoughts on that one, since it was directed to you as well?
I look at it as a question of percentages. For our large retailers, their e-commerce has always represented a very small percentage of their sales. So with retail completely dead, they're seeing a shift. I wouldn't call it a pivot over to retail or over to e-commerce. They're seeing a shift in some volume from consumers that are shopping those sites now. And so the site might be up by 20, 30, 40%, but it's still a tiny percentage of the overall business. And it's certainly not going to be enough to clear out all the inventory that's sitting in those 100 closed stores. Right. That is aging by the day because it was spring fashions. And by the time those stores open, no one's going to be buying spring or summer fashions anymore.
Right. Gotcha. Let's take just a shift for a second. In order to run all of these businesses, any business, you have to rely on partners. And, the catalog industry, relies very heavily on all of the folks that are creating your product for you, but you also rely very heavily on, obviously, the printers, the paper providers, and then the post office. There's been a lot of upheaval lately. We've seen one of the major printers file Chapter 11. That's likely to take some more capacity out of the system. The paper mills continue to shut down and now move from catalog paper to corrugated boxes. And with this whole advent of more and more growth online, maybe we're going to see even more of that happening. And then we've got the post office and all the struggles. So let's start with the mailers, maybe with Steve. How are you thinking about this, that you're so reliant on a network of providers that is perhaps ill, just as like the rest of the industry?
That's a good question. I would have to say is I think I've chosen providers who aren't ill, would be my first answer to that. We work with at least 4 different printers. 3 of the 4 I know are, in really good, strong positions. In fact, they had so much work come December, we were missing some deadlines because they could barely fit in the work that we gave them. That's not the case right now. So that's not much of a problem. In terms of from the paper side, we work with Linden Meyer, and we've had a good experience there, and we've been seeing our paper prices go down of late, which we were very happy with. That has a lot to do with a lot of things that we can't control and moves up and down. So I guess I'm not so worried there. My biggest worry probably is the USPS in terms of what could happen there. I know, that there's a lot of folks who have been working to lobby them, to lobby Congress in terms of really getting an understanding of what it is we do, and understanding that the elasticity of demand of the postal price just is not where they think it is. And I think if anything, a friend of mine pointed out that with this most recent crisis, it clearly revealed itself. You have a lot of mailers who have pulled back, and they pulled back because of the current situation, and it really has done nothing but sort of further impact the Postal Service. I think, they had plans of, or I've heard plans of 30% increases in postal for catalogers. If they were to implement that, we obviously just continue to cut back and find more digital approaches. But they're probably the one I'm most worried about in terms of what could happen. One person, as we look at the issues that they have and the funding that they're getting from the government or lack of funding, the government's looking for it to stand on its own. But someone said to me, it is its own sort of important service that it's providing, and we don't look for I-95 to provide a return on investment, and we don't look for 911 to provide a return on investment, but you're looking at a service that provides medicine and checks and all sorts of things through the mail. So that's probably the one I'm most worried about. I'd be interested in hearing what Bill Bass's thought is on that.
So would I.
Yeah, it's the print world matters a lot to us. We mail over 200 million catalogs a year, so that's a big expense for us. And having printers that we can rely on and have a good relationship with, having a postal service that'll deliver the things that get printed on time when they're supposed to is important to us. The postal service, for me, at the end of the day, we look at everything. We're rational economic players, right? So for us, every marketing dollar that we spend, no matter what channel it goes through, has to have a return on investment. And if your costs go up in print, your investment will go down, right? You'll just be sending catalogs to the people higher in the file who are going to generate the return investment that you do. I don't have I used to be in the Army, and the post office to me is kind of the land war in Asia problem. There's no solution. You get sucked into that quagmire, and it's gonna keep going. Bill LaPierre wrote a very just a great blog this morning talking about the inefficiencies where you have post offices in little towns spread around, so they haven't really thought about efficiency, right? And because so much of it's driven by politics. And whenever it gets sucked up into politics, it's always hard to see what the resolution is going to be, and it's not going to be fast. So I spend almost 0% of my time worried about the post office because I don't think it's going to get fixed. I think it's going to keep on kind of limping along like it is now until something major happens.
Has anybody heard of a USPS summer sale in the offing? Somebody asked that question. Maybe that's just wishful thinking.
I haven't. But they've always come up with, I remember they had the one where if you put a QR code on the back of your catalog, you got a big discount, right?
Well, that still exists.
Oh, does it still exist? Okay.
Yeah. You're not taking advantage of it, Bill? We just saved you millions of dollars here.
I'm sure we would. But it's funny because QR codes don't work. They don't work. They weren't going to do, but it was like, hey, here's another discount we can do with the post office, right? So, we have smart people figuring out how to, and I shouldn't say game the system, but sit there and figure out the rules and how to optimize operating within those rules. But I don't think there's going to be fundamental changes in the post office. I think rates are going to continue to go up at some rate, but I don't think it's going to fall apart. Printers, I'm actually more worried about the printers. You got big capital expenses in that. The amount of so you got big fixed costs, and then all of a sudden, you start for magazines out there, fewer and fewer printed books, fewer and fewer catalogs. So you got a big fixed costs with a shrinking market, and I think the printers are going to continue to have pressure on those. And we just saw that with LSC going through declaring bankruptcy.
All right. Matt, anything you hear from your clients about those kinds of third-party relationships?
The postal issues in particular, you're saying, Mark? Or?
Yeah, that or anything else. I'm sure you hear everybody talking about all of their problems. So just wanted to see if you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I am probably cynical. I would say I agree with Bill Bass that I suspect that as a result of one of these rounds of sort of the follow on to the CARES Act and the next one that's coming. So sort of I don't know if they're calling them bailouts or what they're calling them, but one of these rounds, there will be money for the post office negotiated in, and that will buy time. But like Bill Bass, I don't think it fundamentally changes the organization to suddenly be concerned about what Bill L. said this morning in efficiency of operations. So I think most of our clients look at the cost of the postal. They are aware and engaged, but they're despite the great efforts of organizations like the ACMA, I think that they struggle with their ability to influence that. And so they look at it as a cost of operating that is outside their control. And it just goes into their calculation of mail volume and transferring to other channels.
And maybe I'll direct this to Bill L. You know, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but is there going to be an even more aggressive move to pull away from putting books in the mail and being more aggressive digitally?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of catalogers right now are kicking themselves that they weren't doing more to make that move previously, that they weren't doing holdout tests to determine what the incremental value of mailing a catalog was, that they weren't making the book more of a web driver, trying to get people to recognize the fact that, you know, you mentioned a minute ago in prospecting, it's always those incremental pages that you drop that you're worried about. But that's something that catalogers are going to have to figure out going forward. They have to say, you know, I just can't afford to keep mailing a 64 or a 48-page book to a consumer that is moving digital, if not moving to mobile. That mobile customer who orders online or orders from her phone every day doesn't necessarily need, and in most cases doesn't even want to be getting a catalog from you. So companies like Clario can help you figure out who those people are. We do the same thing. So you're going to see more of that acceleration to that full digital environment. And I think catalogers are at the point right now, because of what's happened in the last 6 weeks, that they're going to really work on trying to figure it out. They don't have that luxury. And the best example that I give people, and this is not a catalog example, it's an online example. It's called Missouri Star Quilting. I wrote a blog post about it a couple of years ago. They started about 12 years ago. And if you're not familiar with them, all they sell is quilting supplies to make quilts, much like a traditional cataloger like Keepsake Quilting. And probably 10 or 12 years ago, Missouri Star Quilting would have started as a catalog, but instead they didn't have any money. The son talked his mother into doing a YouTube video on how to do quilting. They now have 830 videos. They post a new one every week. You can go on and check out their YouTube channel. They have 630,000 subscribers to their channel. And every one of those videos, including 3 that they posted last week on how to make masks out of leftover quilting material, every one of those videos has a call out to go visit their website. So there's an example of a company that has, you know, ignored the co-ops, ignored a lot of pay-per-click type stuff, just going on YouTube. If you watch these videos, they're cheap, they're hokey, they're probably shot in a back conference room in their office, but it's driving their business. And you know, they're not a client of ours, but an article I read said they're doing about $45 million a year in sales. So it can be done. And I think the experience that we're seeing with our clients right now, that obviously they're benefiting from the fact that they sell stuff that people need, but they're generating a ton of orders and sales without benefit of a catalog in the mail. People are going to try and figure this out.
Mark, to that end, if you don't mind me just jumping in, and
Please.
you know, one of the things that we're doing at Rhodes Scholar is, you know, we have some really talented people in the organization, and our one person, our creative director, Paige Davis, is leading a team where we since people can't take our programs, we've launched virtual programs. So if you go on our website, normally you don't change your main navigation. You'll see on our website, roadscholar.org, we now have virtual lectures. We're launching virtual lectures every day now, and sharing our presentations from our faculty, Rhodes Scholar faculty. The other thing that we're doing is we're taking pieces that we had been planning on putting in the mail and creating digital catalogs out of those. We're turning them into flip books. I've done it in the past. It hasn't been all that successful, but this is a way for us to at least have that content, share it with people, share it via email, and allow people to experience our products that we're not putting in the mail, but doing digitally. I think one of the things you'll see is us evolve that, where it's much more digitally focused over time. But then again, the website is essentially that, right? A digital catalog. So I thought I'd share those two pieces with you.
Yeah, that's good, and it's a great segue into some of the other things that, and maybe we'll start with Matt. Are you seeing anything else? And I'll use as the example. I heard Bill Bass talk about this, and some other catalogers. What else might people been doing now that they kind of thought they wanted to do before but were afraid to? One of the things has been work from home for customer service agents. I've heard a number of businesses now they're forced to do it. They're seeing the experience is really good. Many of them may turn and do that on in the future more aggressively. Anything that you're seeing?
I mean, I think as far as the CSR type stuff, that's probably a Bill Bass, Steve question from an ops perspective. Most of our interactions are around marketing. I'll say that there's a big trend, and I see a couple of questions, Mark, related to this where people they do pop up for me here.
Yeah, good.
Good. And people are asking about things like Amazon for acquisition.
Yep.
And I would say that one of the things that I hope that organizations get out of this, and I know you have a spot for this later, but it seemed relevant to your question. The idea that these companies are trying to move a unit of product, whether they're a catalog, e-commerce, bricks, retail. Are they trying to move a unit of product, or are they trying to speak to a consumer in a way that influences them and gets them to buy from their brand, right? And to me, those are very, very different things. The thing that I see, we have several clients that even before this were moving towards Amazon, and it was under the idea that Amazon. You could either be a mover of units on Amazon, but they were thinking that it was a source of customer acquisition. It is a very poor source of customer acquisition across every customer we work with. In our experience, ultimately, these are Amazon customers who happen to buy your product and may pay attention to the name of the organization. The difference would be if you're a consumer brand, a consumer direct to consumer, and you're selling there. But if you're selling a product where the brand recognition is not involved or necessary at the product level, you're really acquiring customers for there. So I would say if there's an urge to move unit of products, do it very cautiously on platforms, marketplaces like Amazon. And then the second thing is, PLA is one step between you having a relationship with a customer and them shopping on Amazon. So, it's basically, think of PLA as Google's Amazon. It is their way to move product units. The one advantage you have there is that they are buying a product that requires them to register on your website so that you can market to them. But when you market to them, to Bill's point, especially if they bought via PLA on mobile, you're not going to be able to retain them significantly via a primary catalog channel. So, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Matt. I was just going to ask you a kind of a question. I've seen businesses that have They started as catalogs. They've migrated very aggressively, to digital. PLA, is continuing to become a bigger and bigger piece of the volume. Generally speaking, the PLA average order is down versus what their normal site is down because their units per order on PLA, are a lot fewer, and therefore those customers don't have the same LTV. How are you counseling, and this goes for anybody here, let Matt continue though, how are you counseling, your customers, your clients, or even your brands to deal with that kind of a problem?
I think it's not an easy answer, because the real answer is you have to convince a consumer that there's more to your brand than selling a unit of product. So what's this is Steve August knows about this very well, being in an organization that is so mission driven, right? That the idea of, it's a nonprofit, it's an org, right? It has a rich history of that. There is a mission that sets it first for the consumer. It's fine to sell a unit of product, right? Everybody needs to do that to put food on the table. But I always ask clients to answer the question of why your brand? Why is a consumer who sits down at their computer or is sitting, on their couch with their smartphone, what is compelling and memory instilling about your brand that's different from somebody else's, that's going to make them type in your brand name into that browser? So what's a bigger story? Because if you aren't compellingly doing that, they're going to be searching for either A, somebody who is telling that story and taking that away from you, or B, the generic category of your product, in which case you're going to pay $20+ a click on PLA to sell a unit of product to a low LTV customer.
Right.
Matt,
Steve
yeah,
wants to
I'll jump in, and I'm going to channel Bill LaPierre a little bit on this, because I know Bill has blogged on this many a time. But yeah, no, I've been, for those of you who know me, I've worked at Staples, I've worked at Brookstone, I've worked at Sharper Image, I've launched Amazon three different times, and as a channel. And I agree absolutely with what Matt says. You'll make money on that first purchase. Unless you're doing heavy modeling on the segment and you're getting a lot of names out of that channel, you're really not going to get that much in terms of a repurchase. The return just isn't there. From a competition standpoint, in terms of competing with those, I mean, clearly folks like Staples, a huge company, has a hard time competing with Amazon. So, a much smaller catalog is definitely going to have problems. Channeling Bill, the way that you do that is you have really unique product, and you bring something to the environment that they just can't bring, whether, as Matt said, in terms of some sort of mission or some level of service or something.
All right. Bill
And
Bass,
can
you talk about how you play in the Amazon game?
I'm sorry, was that for Bill?
Yeah, for you, Bill.
I was going to, because I'm going to swim upstream against this here for a second. So we actually have a very good relationship with Amazon and what we sell on there, and it's a big channel for us and continues to grow pretty quickly. But we're in the position where it's our clothes, it's our own brand. We're plus size clothes. There's not a lot of, people are coming to find us because of our expertise in fit and all the rest of that. So we're not selling generic products that they can find anyplace else, right? So that's a little bit different. But Amazon's been good for us. Walmart is, we recently went up on Walmart. Walmart's turning out to be really, really good for us. So getting our, we make clothes and we sell clothes, and we try and get these in the hands of customers. And one of the ways we do that is through the catalog. Some of the ways we do this is through digital marketing and doing it through other people's marketplaces. We're fairly channel agnostic. We do a lot that we're making money in these channels. and you got to be paying attention to that. But we find that Amazon and Walmart have been actually really good places for us.
Bill, I agree with you 100%. I mean, like I haven't launched it before because it didn't make money. It made money and grew into tens of millions of dollars. But you've got to have your situation where it is sort of a unique product, and they can't. I mean, they will. You know, if you're selling something that they can source on open market, you can be assured within 6 months time that if they didn't have it before, they will have it, and it will be Amazon Prime, and it will be 2-day shipping. So
at a much lower cost than you're able to source it for.
Yeah, but no, you're exactly right. If you have something unique, Bill, I know you're dying to say something, Bill.
Well, I agree with you guys on what's happening with Amazon. But one of the problems that a couple of our clients had was they invested heavily in going onto Amazon, and then they had non-essential products. So they were dead in the water for 4 weeks while Amazon was shipping out toilet paper and food. So, but again, I think that was an exception. We have clients that are doing a lot of sales on Amazon, but it's solely to drive sales. It's not to acquire customers. And I think that something that people have to be clear about is that we have never been able to convert an Amazon customer for any of our clients by then turning around trying to mail them a catalog. You might be able to do something with them via email, but the counts grow very quickly. It's fun to watch the number of new Amazon buyers every time we do an update, but then they don't convert to anything else.
What we find is that if they're an Amazon customer, they're going to stay an Amazon customer, and they're not going to come back and buy very often from you. So it's you're not making an investment for a long time payback. You're having to do it on each transaction, make money. But we found we test the incrementality on that to make sure that we're not Amazon isn't cannibalizing people that would be coming to us directly, and typically like in the 80 to 90% range, these are all new customers that we've never had before and wouldn't be shopping from us.
Yep.
So I've got a question about organizational structure a little bit. I'm still interested when I see businesses, and we've talked a little bit. You've got the folks that are, and there's different skill sets, but there's folks that are the catalog people within a brand, and then you've got the folks that are the digital people within the brand. And there's still, to this day, many businesses where those two groups don't get together frequently enough. They or not part of, we're really all here to do the same thing, drive new customers and generate, repeat purchases from the customers that we already have. And oftentimes I've used this, geez, if I walked into a room and threw down $1 million to the marketing people, would those marketing people know the next best place to spend that $1 million? So I see you're all shaking your head. Bill's got his grimace on his face there. So let me start with Bill at the top. What are you seeing, in Bill up here? What are you seeing with your clients about how they're structured a bit and how they think about the next best place to spend their marketing dollars?
Well, first, I don't think it's necessarily inherently bad to have different teams, and I don't think it's necessarily a problem. The key is who's the CMO, who's the guy who's driving, or the woman who's driving the cooperation between these two groups of people. And I looked at Bill Bass as a great example. I've known Bill through his career, and for the thing that always caught my attention was he started out at the Boston Globe when the Boston Globe was trying to go online. And here was an old line newspaper who was being upset by this young Army guy to try and start an online business. And it was probably very frustrating. And I think, an online person coming into any catalog environment, because after that he went to Land's End, which is where I first became aware of him. And you're constantly butting heads with the traditional catalogers. Now it's the reverse. Now you've got the online people who, for the most part, are the people in control. And it's the catalog people who are butting heads saying, well, you don't understand. We still need to mail a catalog.
Right.
It really comes down to the value of the CMO, what their experience is, how the breadth of their experience. And the place where we usually see the transition happen is when we show them the results of a holdout test. And all of a sudden they realize, wow, I still generate an awful lot of demand without having mailed a catalog. And that's when the little light bulbs go off for everybody. So that's when the $1 million sitting on the table in the middle of the room, it's really hard for the catalog people to justify, well, yeah, we need all of that at that point.
Matt?
Yeah, the silo question is sort of, I talked about where we came from, focused primarily on catalog channel optimization, and then moving up. The reason we had to move into attribution, move into CLV, move into planning is to deal with these silos. Because a huge part of the opportunity is, as everyone on this call has been saying, is to look at the customer from where the customer prefers to engage, where they prefer to shop, and then optimize marketing on those channels where they prefer to engage. So it's the silos are fine. You mentioned a couple of them, catalog digital. Catalog digital is great. There's also silos e-commerce to marketing. There's also silos of the bricks team, right, that does their own thing over here compared independent of them. And even at organizations, they have different entire email marketing teams to support each channel. So these silos, until the organization, and I love what Bill L said about Bill Bass and the idea that it comes to who is driving it from the top down. And maybe another way to say it is, who owns that customer, right? And the interactions with the customer. If you're looking at it through the lens of I'm going to come with a coordinated strategy against a customer, then I think you're looking at it through a lens where the silos can still exist. They present operational efficiencies and all of the great things that they do as work groups, but someone has to be the orchestra, conductor up at the top saying, yes, but you can't maximize for this while they're maximizing for that, and wrecking the experience of that consumer.
Steve and Bill Bass, thoughts on structure and perhaps how you guys are structured and how you see that decision of how to spend that next $1 million?
Bill, you want to go, or you want me to take it first?
I guess I'll go since I'm talking. But it was interesting for us. So when I got to Full Beauty, before that, a private equity firm had bought the company and decided that catalogs were dying and it was all going to be digital. And so they basically took all the marketing catalog people and put them over in the corner and brought in a bunch of digital people and vetted them, and confetti was blowing off and all the rest of this, and the business tanked. Okay. And so then when I got there and our CEO got there last summer, he sat there and said, look, we're channel agnostic. We just want to do whatever right is by the customer. And there shouldn't be this, hey, it's all about digital or it's all about the catalog. It's all about, we sell clothes to plus size people that have a hard time finding clothes other places. And so people were like, oh man, we used to be the cool kids and just like everybody else. But the print people were like, yay, we're back to being normal and not being outcast pariahs. And I still don't get any of this, because to me, it's like, look, our job is here to serve the customer, not to be parochial about, hey, it's all about digital, because it's not, or it's all about catalogs, or it's not. It's, so television could come along and then all of a sudden we'll start using television. So we really try to be agnostic in marketing channel, but be very, very focused on providing really good product to the customers.
Yeah, and
That's a great answer.
From a channel standpoint, keep in mind, right? People who are receiving email today and responding through digital, they can unsubscribe. when they unsubscribe from an email, what's your opportunity really to kind of reach out to them in an aggressive way? Your only solid opportunity is to throw something in the mail. And, Bill, I know you were saying from an email standpoint, there's a certain segment that should probably only get email, but there's a certain segment maybe that should, really can only get catalog. So, but I agree as well. From a channel standpoint, you should be channel agnostic. I'll give you a real quick case study. When I was at Staples, I joined in 1995, and by the year 2000, they were launching this thing called Staples.com. And every beginning of every month, all of a sudden they'd see a huge spike in their demand, and they'd be jumping up and down, throwing the confetti, and saying how good they are, but then it would fall off. And we were wondering where our demand was going from, but of course that was being driven from our catalog mailings, and eventually those two got brought together. But if you go to look at Staples today, they do not mail a catalog. There is a catalog request form. It leads to the home page, which is really kind of interesting. They do some direct mail. They're mailing coupons and everything, but I would say, if I was to go back there, that would be one of the first things I would launch. I'd bring back like a facilities catalog, because a catalog has a certain level of branding. It has a certain level of quick reference, has a certain ability to kind of power through where email can't necessarily do that, and reach beyond sort of digital means. So, I think there's a place for everything, being channel agnostic and really having a solid mix. At the end of the day, we are, retailers, e-tailers. We're not necessarily catalogers. We're leaders who make the most of what works.
So as we're coming down here, we've got 1 minute for each of you to answer the question of the webinar. Where do catalogs go from here? Bill LaPierre, start us off, please.
It's got to be merchandise. And it's one of the things we haven't talked about today, but you've got to have unique proprietary product. I think one of the things that's going to happen coming out of this crisis is catalogers are going to look to being smaller, but more profitable. And in doing so, they're going to say, I'm going to stand for something. And what I'm going to stand for is the product that I have that's unique. That's what's going to move them forward.
Okay, thanks. Bill Bass?
Yeah, one of the things that I've found is we've gone through this coronavirus, everybody working from home. Some of the changes, particularly around creative. Where do you go to do photo shoots? Can't do photo shoots. What are we going to do? And we were just looking at some stuff that Quad is doing around color correcting, and now color correcting around print. You could always do it around solids. And some of the digital manipulation that you can do now around photography, which our creative people had always held back as much as they could because they didn't think it was good enough. The digital stuff is now not sure we're going to need to do a bunch of new photo shoots and things like that. And that would have been a change that would have been years coming, that I think now that everybody's having to kind of jury rig stuff from home, they're opening up their eyes to the possibilities and really being impressed with some of the things that are coming along. So I actually think coronavirus has been a pain in the ass, but I think we're going to have an inflection point in business processes and stuff that's going to make our businesses actually more efficient coming out of this than they ever would have been had this not happened.
Okay, Steve?
Pretty much just reiterating what I said, catalogs are part of the mix. Will they increase? They will for some folks. Some e-tailers, some pure e-commerce plays will add them in. They'll be added on over time. I think you'll see, you see some declining trends across the entire industry, but at some point it will level off and it will be part of the mix. I think, if I was to mentor anyone who's in the catalog industry, maybe doing print design, it's, be prepared to do some digital design, get involved in terms of helping out with the email team, helping out, doing digital display, take on other tasks beyond just pure catalog, because it won't be the only thing that, that's going to drive our businesses forward.
Okay, thank you. Matt, bring it on home.
Right. That's a lot of buildup. I think the key point I would love to have people take away from my participation is these are a lot of smart people, other people on this panel. Really, we don't know when the economy is going to reopen. We don't know. We can start to see the impacts of these things. But I work with a lot of organizations where I keep hitting on that point of inertia and momentum and resistance to change and beliefs that are cooked into them, right? And their being. And it's incredibly frustrating from the outside to see that and see the potential of these organizations and see it not realized. So when you talk about Amazon eating our lunch, fine, Amazon's eating your lunch, but they're eating your lunch because you're not moving fast enough. You're not innovating, and moving fast doesn't mean, throw money at the fan, right? It means take a thoughtful approach to innovation, to experimentation, and fuel it. Bill LaPierre talked a lot about holdout tests. Fill it with testing. You get data, follow the science. This is a lesson that goes beyond just this catalog discussion today. But follow the data and the evidence on the process. You make calculated risks in your organization, and never just sit back on your laurels of presupposition. I know this to be true. Always challenge those beliefs and keep that experimentation and testing funnel going.
Great, thank you. All right, we're out of time. I want to thank Bill Bass, Matt Redlon, Steve August, Bill LaPierre for joining me today. Thank you for the over 300 people that joined us at various times today. I hope that you found it useful. If you have any questions that we didn't get to, there were a number of them, feel free to write me and I'll see if I can direct them to the right people. And most importantly, we wish everybody good health, and hopefully we can all get back to some semblance of normal very soon. So thanks very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks guys. Good job.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Stay
Thanks,
well.
Mark. Good to see you, Bill. Nice to meet you, Bill. Bye, guys.
See ya.